And greetings and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network. I am Reverend Jim Webb, your host and the author of The Soul of Prosperity, Prosperity from A to Z, 30 P's to Prosperity, and Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and to discuss the many aspects of prosperity. Because as you know, prosperity is more than just money and stuff. Prosperity is an inner feeling of connection with the infinite source of infinite good and the process of allowing that source of infinite good to work through us and express as us, that we might see an outward reflection of that energy as we integrate with it. As we integrate with the energy of unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, infinite bounty, infinite blessings, it is inevitable that our outer world will reflect love and blessings. And those loving blessings can take many forms. Those loving blessings can take the form of relationship prosperity, where our relationships are productive, supportive, uplifting, and outward reflections of inner love, and no longer sources of conflict, diminishment, or struggle. Prosperity can take the form of professional prosperity, where, as Florence Scovel Shen says, we have a wonderful job with wonderful pay, where we offer a wonderful service in a wonderful way. Prosperity can also take the form of family prosperity, where our family relationships are equally supportive, uplifting, and no longer a source of conflict or struggle. Prosperity can take the form of logistical prosperity, where our lives work easily, effortlessly, and without struggle. And there are so many other ways that prosperity might take form, but it is all an outer reflection of an inner energy and an inner consciousness that we develop as we commune with the highest power through prayer, meditation, release, and the inner work of prosperity. So we discuss all of that on the Miracle of Prosperity. And tonight I'm so excited because we've got a wonderful topic and a wonderful guest. Our topic is rejection. A rejection is a catalyst for prosperity. Now you may wonder about that. Why is rejection a catalyst or a springboard for prosperity? And we have a wonderfully special guest who will be with us shortly, Henry Harris. He has written a book, The Sting of Rejection, where he explores rejection. And I've read this book, and it's available on Amazon.com. What this book offers, though, is an understanding of rejection and how we can move through rejection. And as I read Henry's book, this is Brother Henry Harris, as I read his book, what was amazing to me was that, and I reviewed it on Amazon.com, what was amazing to me was, yes, it was about rejection, but in dealing with rejection, we deal with all the inner no's, and we turn those inner no's into yeses so that we can say yes to the yes God offers. In other words, when we deal with rejection, that outer rejection is a reflection of a part of us within that we must look at, heal, and transform. For that outer rejection is an outer reflection of a no within us. When we are rejected from something outside of us, there is something within us that says no to the yes God offers. We say, I desire to experience this. And when we have a rejection from the outside world, we realize, well, maybe there's a part of me buried deep within, maybe from childhood, maybe from some of my past experiences, that was taught no. And maybe I need to turn that no into a yes in order to allow the source of all good to bless me with my desire. And so the sting of rejection explores rejection, but it also continually turns us back into ourselves. What lies have we been told about ourselves to cause us to reject ourselves? What behaviors have become a part of our consciousness that would allow rejection to continue? What are the core issues between us and God that would cause us to support a consciousness of rejection instead of a consciousness of prosperity? So, this book gives in plain language and wonderful examples how we can do the inner work to deal with rejection, which by default is the inner work that allows prosperity. And that's why rejection is a springboard to prosperity. And let me offer you an example. When I was in national sales school learning how to sell telecommunications equipment for AT&T many moons ago, our instructors told us our first no is not the end of the selling process. Our first no is the beginning of the selling process. For our first no uncovers the client's objections that we can address. So, by that token, when we experience rejection, we are uncovering our own objections to our good that we can then address. So, that's a different way of thinking about rejection. And as A Course in Miracles says, a miracle is the ability to see something differently. So we're going to go into how we can look at rejection, how we can look at it as a springboard for prosperity, and how we can use rejection to help us to develop a prosperity consciousness. And we're going to do all this and so much more here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network after this quick break.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. And as we discussed, rejection is a springboard to prosperity or a catalyst to prosperity because rejection helps us to identify the no hiding within us that rejects the yes God offers. So, in his book, The Sting of Rejection, one of the things that is so wonderful about it is that it keeps causing us to point inward at our inner consciousness as opposed to blaming or shaming someone outside of us that has rejected us. And that is so powerful and such a wonderful roadmap to doing the inner work to help us deal with rejection and therefore to help us to allow prosperity. So, as you might have guessed, we were having some challenges getting Brother Henry Harris on the phone, but we've got him now. So, we're going to introduce Brother Henry Harris. Welcome. We're so glad to have you, Brother Henry.
Hello,
And I
sir. It's nice
absolutely
to be
love
here.
your book. I absolutely love your book. And what I love most about it is its
Well, thank you
clarity.
so much.
You're so welcome. It's clarity. I love its simplicity. And I love how you continually use rejection as a catalyst for healing. That is so powerful and so useful. Now, one of the things that you mentioned in the book is how you had to understand the core lies that you have been told and that you believed that caused you to feel rejected. And those were pretty universal. So, what are some of the core misunderstandings that have miseducated us, that cause us to reject ourselves and therefore to reject the prosperity that we desire?
I think rejection is something that is part of the human experience. I think it's something that we all deal with in life. A lot of times people ignore it. We pretend like it doesn't exist. But it's a part of the human experience. Nobody likes going through rejection. Rejection is not refusing to be accepted. But rejection can also be a variety of other things too that a lot of
Hmm.
people struggle with. So you were referring to the core. I think the core would be, you know, realizing that rejection doesn't define you at the end of the day. Well, if somebody rejected you in relationships, in friendships, in a marriage, acquaintance, a co-worker, like their rejection of you doesn't stop the flow of prosperity in your life, and from you going from point A to point B. You get to the point where you kind of lay rejection down, realize it's a part of life, and at the same time discovering your true self as well.
Okay. That helps me to understand, Brother Henry. It looks like we're still having some difficulties, but that really does help us to understand. Because what I heard you saying is that we often begin to define ourselves and limit ourselves by rejection. For example, if, let's use the example of the 16-year-old stood up by her prom date. That 16-year-old, if she defines herself by rejection, will begin to believe lies such as she is not beautiful, she is not desirable, and she is not enough. And those lies will then echo through her life, and that inner lie will create its outer reflection in the form of other circumstances where she is rejected, and that false idea of her not enoughness will become reinforced. But what I hear you saying, Brother Henry, is that we need not define ourselves by our rejection, for that experience is an invitation to healing. And so I'd like for us to focus on that, for that rejection is an invitation to healing. And let's use the case study of the 16-year-old rejected by her prom date or stood up by her prom date, which is a form of rejection. She doesn't That does not define her. It does not make her less beautiful, less enough, less divine, or less holy. Is that accurate, Brother Henry?
Yes, sir. It's very accurate. I feel like, or at least I believe that God invites us all to the table. Whether that's rejection or trauma or maybe some hurt that you've experienced in your life. And rejection is an invitation to really discover who you are as a person. Um, I feel and believe that w- rejection, and I've said this before, rejection is an inside job, not an
Yes.
outside job. Because when you look on the outside, you hear people say they don't like me, they don't accept me, they don't validate me, they don't care about me. Well, that's the outside job because we're seeking that validation from those people. What would it look like? The essence of my book is what would it look like to give yourself what you're looking for in other people?
Yes. For example, what would it look like to feel such a sense of unconditional, loving acceptance from within yourself as a result of your cultivating an energy and a connection with the divine, that you loved yourself so completely, so unconditionally, that you felt the flow of love flowing to you and through you at all times? Then that flow of love is creative energy. Love must create. And that flow of love then must create loving circumstances in your outer world. Would that be accurate, Brother Henry?
Yes, that is accurate because there are so many people today that don't really love themselves. They don't like. It goes back to what I just said. We look at other people and we're like, they don't like me, they don't love me, they don't accept me, they don't approve of me. And it goes back to what I said is that when you give yourself what you're looking for in other people, that's
Mm-hmm.
the most liberating experience that you could ever experience. I mean, talking about prosperity, I mean, that is a great way to prosper, to take rejection
Yes.
and turn it into prosperity in the sense
Yes.
of, they it's great. We all long for acceptance. We all
Mm-hmm.
long to be loved and validated. Like I said, it's part of who we are. But it's a beautiful
Yes.
thing that when you don't get those things, that I, I had value, significance, and worth before I became really popular on social media. I had all these things, but so if I lost it all, I would be okay. I felt a sense of rejection when Facebook the other day, if you remember, just disappeared. Nobody can get into their accounts.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
at the same time, I was like, it taught me a lesson that, you know, what would our identity look like without those things? And I love social
Mm-hmm.
media, but we can also look
Mm-hmm.
at rejection in that same way. Rejection is so at the core part of people's identity that we feel like that it's all who we are. We've always been rejected, so I am rejection. I think that's a lie. We've
Mm-hmm.
all been isolated, so we start to think, well, maybe my name is isolation. No, you're not. You're not what you've experienced. You may go through those experiences, but that's not
Mm-hmm.
who you are at the core of who you are as a person.
In other words, don't let rejections define you. Allow rejections to heal you by looking at the part of you within that has felt rejected. And when you feel rejected, it is a cry for love. For any sort of rejection is a part of you that believes that love is unavailable to you and that love is being withheld from you. And that's not true because you are always connected to to an infinite supply of love and a source of unconditional love. And that source of unconditional love is our Creator, the divine, whatever you picture that divine to be. And that love can flow to us when we turn our faces to it, when we allow it, when we invoke it, when we call it in, and when we give it permission to do so, instead of giving our sense of rejection more power to define and limit us. So, rejection is a place where we can call God in and where the grace and glory of God can cause us to feel loved, lovable, valuable, peaceful, supported, powerful, worthy, and deserving. And when the light of God causes us to remember those things about ourselves, then we allow God's good in all of its forms. And we no longer focus on rejection, and we no longer magnify and amplify rejection, for it no longer defines us. And that's one of the reasons I love your book, Reverend Brother Dr. Henry. Now, in the ending of your book,
Thank you.
those last couple of
Thank
chapters,
you.
I found something that was very profound as well. In the chapter where you talked about at core, we feel rejected by God. And you go through the Genesis second chapter, and where uh, Eve ate the apple, gave some to Adam. Adam blamed Eve. God said, "Where are you, Adam? Who told you you were naked?" and banished them from the kingdom of heaven. I loved that chapter because it helped me to understand that quite often we have felt rejected by and abandoned by God. And we've let that define us as sinners and unworthy. And when we define ourselves as sinners and unworthy because we let God's rejection define us, we feel unworthy of our prosperity. I love that chapter. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, and I'm smiling because that's one of my favorite chapters that I ended up writing because that was my experience at one time. And you know the
Yes.
story. God instructed him them not to eat off the tree, and they ended up doing that. And as a result, they were removed from the garden. And so that ideal of separation, I have a hard time believing in, and I respect those
Hmm.
who do believe that they are somehow alienated from God, separated from God. And I feel like me personally, I want to have a relationship with a God where I didn't feel I was connected to in some way. I wouldn't really feel secure to be connected to a God where if I mess up, made a mistake, missed the mark, or however you want to define quote unquote sin, where that disqualifies me from being in union with Him. But that's a theology that I was raised in, where
Hmm.
if you mess up or sin or whatever, that yeah, God does love you, but He will reject you one of these days if you don't follow the rules, jump through all the
Hmm.
religious loopholes, and do all the
Hmm.
right, make all the right choices and the right. And that ain't. And over the years, I've discovered as I've become more acquainted with God, I just see God in a whole different light now. I don't see Him a distant God with a disapproving heart.
Mm.
Um, and I just don't see that God anymore. I don't see a God where you're here and I'm here, and you better pray, you better fast, you better go to you better do all these things to get close to me. I don't really even believe in the ideology of closeness. I believe in the ideology of union. That
Of oneness.
I am
In
one
other
with
words,
Him in spirit.
yes, in other words, you don't have to get close to God because you were already one with God. You've never been
Yeah,
rejected by God because you are. in essence, the light of God lives within you. You've never been banished from the kingdom of heaven because God never rejected you. That was just an idea that was in error. Is that accurate? Is that what you're saying?
Y- Yes, that is what I'm saying, Reverend Jim. That is what I'm saying because it is such a powerful feeling to wake up to that revelation that God
Mm-hmm.
will never reject me. You know,
Mm,
I find it quite ironic how um, people will say God will reject you. Look what He did with Adam and Eve, and and they'll pull
mm,
scriptures out to prove that one day God's going to reject you. But at the same time, Jesus didn't seem to be an embodiment of what the structure of what people think rejection is today. And what I mean by that
mm-hmm,
is how can you say that our Father or Source or God will reject me while all along Jesus clearly says, "Lo, I am with you always,
mm-hmm,
even until the end of the world." It just doesn't make sense to me. One would have to cancel out the other. Will He reject me, or is He with me at
mm-hmm.
all times? And I choose to believe the latter.
Yes, in other words, that nothing shall separate us from the love of God, for the love of God lives within us. So, what you uncovered, Reverend
Yeah.
Henry, is the core idea that is in error that causes us to reject or disallow the prosperity that God wants to give us. The core idea that is in error is that we have been separated from God, that we have been banished from the kingdom of heaven, that God has separated us, is punishing us, has rejected us, and therefore something's wrong with us, and we don't deserve the fruits of the tree. So, what you are telling me, if I hear you correctly, and you can let me know if I hear you correctly, is that you have a different experience of God. You do not have an experience of God as outside of you, but you have had an experience of the indwelling God. And that indwelling God has never rejected you, but is a source and force for love. And when you are in union with that source and force for love, only good flows to you, through you, and only good shows up in your outer world. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, you are. You are hearing that right. And I just think, you know, I feel like that as a human being, we, like I said, we're all going to experience rejection. It's one thing to
Mhm,
experience rejection and feel this way about yourself already. That's rejection is a
mhm,
dark place. That's why on the
mhm,
front of my book, I got the guy standing in the wilderness. There's no resources, no help,
mhm,
loneliness. That I wanted that there because I am that man, where I felt isolated, alone, no support. It's one thing to
mhm,
feel that way as a person, but it's another thing to
mhm,
come and say, let me validate and tell you that God feels that same way about you. I just refuse to believe that. I just
mhm,
refuse to believe that, okay, I'm rejected. I feel abandoned. I feel depraved. I feel lost. And then you come right
mhm,
along and say, well, God feels the same way about you. You're lost. You're depraved. You're rejected
mhm,
by Him. One day He loves you, next day He doesn't. There's like no freedom either way it goes until you start to open your eyes through the lens of prosperity and you start to see God in a whole different light that quite frankly, it may go against what a lot of what we've been taught in a church setting
mhm.
as it relates to prosperity and rejection.
Absolutely. A Course in Miracles lessons 91 through 93 say, there is no sin. It has no consequences.
Hmm.
And that flies absolutely in the face of the whole premise of some of the things that we've been taught. Because some of the things that we've been taught are as follows: you have sinned. Therefore, you have been banished. Therefore, you have to find your way back to God and work your way back to God. When A Course in Miracles says there is no sin, it has no consequences, therefore, you don't have to find your way back to God. You just have to find the God within you. And
Hmm.
therefore, you don't need to punish yourself or allow yourself to be punished. You simply connect with God, that indwelling energy of light and love that has all the characteristics of God. And when you do so, the part of you that has said no to God's blessings and bounty, that part of you is transformed. And that part of you gives itself permission to say yes to God. Because God is saying yes to you all the time. But what we're saying is, God is saying, yes, my beloved, I want you to experience joy. Yes, my beloved, I want you to experience harmony. Yes, my beloved, I want you to have fun. Yes, my beloved, I want it to be easy and joyful and effortless for you. That's what God is saying to us. And we're saying, but no, God, I learned that you rejected me, that I'm not good. I've got to work my way back to you and I've got to struggle. But no, God, I don't
Mm-hmm.
deserve that because I've been rejected and don't feel deserving of it. But no, God, you are punishing me and I feel like I need to be punished for my sins. So God is saying yes and we are saying no. But rejection, if I hear you correctly, Brother Henry, is a catalyst to cause us to wake up and say yes to the yes that God offers and to allow
Mm-hmm.
the prosperity that is God's idea. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Good. Okay. Well, we're going to solicit some questions and comments from our viewers as well on this topic. And we're going to come back and we're going to discuss that in the next segment of the Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe DeMuro. And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network with Brother Henry Harris, author of the book, The Sting of Rejection.
Now, I left something on the table before that I wanted to come back and to explore. There were a few things in your book that I found so fascinating. One of them was uh, how Dr. Stephanie Lape said, rejection sometimes is a function of vibrational incompatibility. Don't take it personally, which is kind of an aspect of the Four Agreements. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Brother Henry?
Well, I think what she was saying, I love her quote. A lot of
Yes.
times a lot of times as an individual, we take rejection personally. Like
Hmm.
we sit back and we wonder, why won't this person fully accept me for who I am? Why won't this person fully love me for who I am? The problem with that is that they don't love who they are. They
Yes.
haven't fully accepted who they are. So it's kind of hard to give like what you don't have. So I believe
Yes.
what she was trying to elaborate is that it's very important to become acquainted with self acceptance, because I believe that's
Yes.
where it starts there, and that's really hard because you have to sort through all the baggage and all the false beliefs and false narratives
Hmm.
about yourself that you've been taught about yourself, not just religiously, but just even in a practical sense.
Generally,
Growing up,
yes.
yeah, generally I was called names, stupid,
Hmm.
and all of derogatory names. I'm not going to say. I was called a sissy, all type of stuff, and I didn't know what those words meant. But as I was
Hmm.
growing up, it made me feel some kind of way because I believe that words either come from a low vibrational frequency or a high vibrational frequency. So when they were
Hmm.
speaking those words over my life, and that's why I refer to words as seeds, as it relates
Hmm.
to the root of rejection, which is chapter 1. Those are
Hmm.
seeds, Reverend Jim, that went well into my adulthood. It went well into my
Mm.
marriages. It went well into
Mm.
relationships I had with people
Hmm.
because I just didn't know I really didn't know who I was. And I started to question, am I really what they call me? I had to go back and
Hmm.
revisit that adult child, so to speak. And that
Mm.
was the hardest thing for me to go back and say, I would not accept anything that doesn't match the truth of who I am. Well, that leads to
Mm.
this question. Well, who am I? You're love,
Mm.
you're value. You like to talk about prosperity. You're prosperous. You're you are amazing. You're unique just the way you are. And there's always going to be someone that will come and love you and accept you and embrace you for who you are and not for what they think you should be. Those are the type of people you don't need in your life. You need people who will accept you, value you. But you know why they'll do that? Because that's something that is a gift that they have already given themselves, which makes it
Mm.
easier for them to extend that gift to you.
So it sounds like as we are on this path to spiritual growth that allows more and more prosperity, there may be some folks along the way who might feel the need to reject us. And our task is to not take it personally, but understand that we are cycling up to a new vibration and we will attract other people that are more vibrationally compatible and therefore more able to see us as God created us and to accept us as we are able to accept ourselves because they are at a similar level of self acceptance. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, sir.
So don't fret, in other words. Like that song by Bobby McFerrin, don't
Hmm.
worry, be happy. And that's very important on our journey for prosperity, on our journey to prosperity, because our journey to prosperity is simply a journey to a higher vibration. And we must allow ourselves to ascend to that higher vibration. And if we are stuck in, let's call it, I love your chapter on people pleasing, by the way. If we are stuck in
Oh,
a
thank
loop of
you.
people pleasing where we are stuck in a lower vibration experience that we feel like we've got to stay stuck in, we may not allow ourselves to evolve vibrationally in order to allow the prosperity that God wills for us. What do you think, Brother Henry?
That is so true. People pleasing can be a little tricky because um, people pleasing in so many ways, it almost like helps you or promotes you to lose who you are as a person
Mm,
because you know it's almost like in order to be accepted, you got to kind of go along to get along, or you got to do it the way they think you should do it. And I was
mm-hmm,
one of those unique kids. I wanted to. I'm still that way. I like to be creative. I like to think outside the
yes,
box type of person.
yes,
But
uh-huh,
that guy out of control as I've gotten older, and when I got into
mm-hmm,
ministry, because I started to impersonate and start to be like other people, so much so that I lost who I was as a person. And then
mm,
when I dismantled all those personalities and people I thought I was, I didn't realize that Brother Henry was unique and
mm-hmm,
special just the way he was, regardless of the absence of acceptance, regardless of who would like me. And the only reason why, well, one of many reasons why many people get involved in people pleasing is because we don't want to disappoint anyone.
mm-hmm,
So people pleasing, like I said, it's a tricky thing that I went through in my life, but
mm-hmm,
I think it's something that we all can relate to because, like I said, ultimately we don't want to disappoint anyone, but you will
yes,
disappoint someone
mm-hmm,
when you tell them or at least show them that I'm not defined by your rejection. I'm not defined by trying to live up to your standards and your guidelines or what you think I should be or what you think I should or shouldn't be doing. Like, I think
mm-hmm,
it's okay to, like you said earlier, don't worry, be happy. It's okay to be happy. And not everybody's going to be pleased with that. Not everybody's going to be
mm-hmm,
pleased with you. Not everybody's going to be
mm-hmm,
happy with the choices you make and the decisions that you make. But you have to
mm-hmm.
be okay with that yourself.
Yes. Wonderfully inspirational, Brother Henry. In other words, uh,
Thank you.
quite often, what you're telling me and what I read in your book was that you lost yourself trying to please others and be what
I
they
did.
wanted you to be. And when you lose yourself, you lose what God created and what God created you to do, and you lose that divine essence of God, which says yes to prosperity in all its forms. And so, if I hear you correctly, and from what I read in that chapter of your book, we have to build boundaries. We have to realize that our people
Hmm.
pleasing behavior evolved from our fear of being rejected by these people. But that fear of being rejected by these people has literally painted us into a corner that does not leave room for our own growth, healing, or prosperity. And you had to get out of that in order to allow yourself to be who God created you to be, and in order to allow all the good God offers. How can God offer you good when you're hiding in a corner and putting on facades, right?
That's
In
exactly
essence.
what it is. It's a yeah, that's what it is. It's a I refer to it in the book as an imposter. It's someone who portrays an image of themselves that's not authentically them, and some people even do it in the church. Religion is a very safe place to be fake and
Hmm.
not to be your authentic self. You become an imposter. I'm not, because I don't want to be rejected. I'm going to take on an image or wear a mask, as some people would say. That's
Uh-huh.
not me. Well,
Hmm.
Henry, why are you doing that? I'm doing that because I don't want to be rejected. So we become imposters. We become what other people think we should be, and it's miserable doing that. It's miserable putting on the mask when you release all that stuff and stop trying to please people. You're taking a huge risk of losing friendships, relationships. But I took the risk, and I think it's amazing. You don't have to wear the mask. You don't have to do none of those things in fear of people rejecting you. As I said earlier, there are people that will
Mhm.
accept you for who you are.
In other words, release the masks that you've been hiding behind, and God's loving acceptance can then find and prosper you. Am I hearing that right?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we've learned so much from you, Brother Henry, and we're going to learn even more. So we're going to go to our third break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to have some surprises for everyone here on the New Thought Media Network.
Awesome.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. We're so glad to have you, Brother Henry, and I absolutely love your book. How do people find your book, Brother Henry?
Um, well, they can contact me directly at Henry Harris on Facebook. But I would say if you want it like quicker, you can probably go to Amazon as well. Just type up the Stinger Rejection by Henry Harris Jr. People have been ordering the book everywhere from Ireland, where else? Australia, just about every state in the United States. Somebody got the sting of rejection. You see the pictures online. And people often ask me, "How does that make me feel?" I feel, overwhelmed by all the love and support, and it just shows you that it's a message that resonates. Even the miracle of prosperity that resonates with so many people because some of the people don't feel prosperous. They feel like there's no hope. So they will have to go to Amazon, just type up that information, and they should be able to order the book that way.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds like you're working on some wonderful stuff with your book, Reverend Brother Dr. Henry. So anything else you're working on these days?
Yeah. Well, I'm part of a new network now called Grace Awakening Network, which is on Roku TV. Just a combination of ministers that share the gospel of grace and encouraging people, motivating people, and things like that. So that's part of what I'm doing now. I'm coming up with new content. just new insight, and all that comes from prosperity. I think we can prosper in our thinking process too. That'll be another great show to do. I think prosperity creates births creativity.
Yes. Beautiful. So sounds like you're working on some wonderful stuff, Brother Henry. Yeah.
Yes,
And
I
I'm
am.
oh, good, good, good. I'm working on one thing right now, and that is my next class, which takes place on the 21st of October. And that class is Your Personal Prosperity Prescription. You see, we all have an individual life plan that we decided prior to incarnation. We all have an individual vibration. We all have an individual spiritual curriculum. And there is a prescription for our prosperity that is unique to us. And in this channeled session, the guides will offer you your own personalized prosperity prescription. The things that you can do based on your unique vibration, your unique spiritual path, and your unique soul's purpose. The things that you can do to create and allow more prosperity. This is on Zoom. The recordings are available. The class size is limited. I may have to clone it and do it on a second date as well if we get sold out, and we're well on the way to being sold out. But if I don't do that, you want to register sooner rather than later so that you are sure to get a slot. Uh, the suggested donation is $39 if you want to participate and ask your question. If you want simply to get the recording, it's $20. And you see there all the ways that you can access it. But in essence, you can always get to me, you know how, on my website or by texting me. And that's how you can register for your personal prosperity prescription. So we're working on some wonderful stuff, and we're so glad to have you, Brother Henry. We thank our producer, Michael, who held up the fort last week when I was stuck in the airport. And we thank you all for joining us here on the New Thought Media Network.